Also in 4.1, Objective 3, finding the number of solutions without graphing. All right, so in your book, my book's old, so it's probably not the same page, but it is in 4.1. You'll notice this little table here. We have consistent system, we have inconsistent system, and we have a consistent system. All right, so there's three options that are going to happen in this chapter. Either they're going to intercept at some point, two lines are going to intercept at some point, or two lines will never intercept because they are parallel, or they are, when you solve them and graph them, you'll find out that they are exactly the same graph. So, one point if they meet, no points if they're parallel, and if they're the same line, then they have infinite solutions. All right, so determine whether these are, how many solutions they have without graphing. All right, so there's lots of ways you can do it, but I'm going to do it with the y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to take each of my equations. I have a 5x plus 4y equals 6. And I'm going to solve for y. So y equals. So I'm just going to solve algebraically. I'm going to get that y by itself, subtract 5x. All right. So we have 4y equals negative 5x plus 6. Divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. We get y equals negative 5x. I'm sorry. Negative 4x plus, and 6 over 4. We don't really care about that. We could reduce that fraction, but we're not. All we care about when we're doing this is our m. I guess we should probably reduce this. This would be divide them both by 2. We get 3 halves. All right, so this becomes 3 halves. So this one's m is negative 5/4. That's all we really care about. All right, let's do the other one. X minus y equals 3. Solve for x. I'm sorry, solve for y. We get negative y equals negative x plus 3. Can't have a negative y, so we're going to divide it by negative 1. We got to do everything by negative 1. So therefore, we have y equals positive x. That's a minus 3. Because now 3 divided by negative 1 is now a negative 3. So this one's m is 1. All right, so do they have the same slope? No. If they had the same slope, they would be parallel. I'm going to repeat that. If they had the same slope, they would be parallel. And if they're parallel, we learned in our book that parallel lines have no solution. However, these slopes are not even the same. All right? They could either be, I guess if they have the same slope, they could be parallel or the same line, depending. But they don't have the same slope. So therefore, this is one solution. This one will have one solution because they don't have the same slope. All right? The next one, same thing. We're going to solve for y equals mx plus b. So we have 1/2 x minus y equals 2. So we need to move this guy over there. So we're going to subtract 1/2 x. So we have negative y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. We're going to divide by negative, divide by negative, divide by negative. Y equals negative divided by positive is going to become a positive 1/2 x. And then the negative divided by positive become negative 2. So this one's slope is 1/2. Remember, your slope is always the number with your x. All right, let's do the other one. This one's already solved for x, but we need it solved for y. So we could do it either way, but I'm just going to subtract 5 here. I'm going to have x, subtract 5 here. X minus 5 equals 2y. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So then we could have now 1/2 x. We can always put a 1 in front of the x. Now it's just 1/2 x minus 5 halves equals y. Do they have the same slope? The number with the x. Yes, they do have the same slope. So now I have to decide, are they the same exact line? or are they just parallel? So if they're just parallel, they have the same slope but different y-intercepts, these guys. So when we have the same slope, we then need to look at the other thing. Are these guys exactly the same? If these guys were exactly the same, then they would be the same line, which would make it infinite solutions. However, since these are different, but the slopes are the same, that means these two lines are going to be, excuse me, I lost my pencil. These two lines are going to be parallel because they have the same slope but different y-intercepts. So this means that they have no solutions. If we'd come to where they had the same slope and these were exactly the same, then they would be the same line, which would make them infinite solutions.